For years, Daniel had been a part of an organization working to bring clean water to remote communities across continents. Places where children often walked miles for a bucket of murky, disease-ridden water, where women spent hours each day carrying heavy containers, and where something as simple as diarrhea could mean the loss of a life. This number, 2 million, wasn't just data on a spreadsheet. It was faces, hundreds of them Daniel had seen himself, grinning with joy as fresh, cold water gushed from newly drilled wells, as rusted buckets gave way to shiny taps, and as the dry earth grew dark and wet under the spray. Daniel thought of Sifa first. She was 12 when he met her, barefoot, shy, and with eyes that carried the weight of someone much older. Her daily routine was the same as every girl in her village. Wake before dawn, walk to the river with her friends, fill a 20-liter jerry can, and carry it home balanced on her head. The water was a deep brown, flecked with leaves and insects, but it was all they had. By the time she returned, her neck and shoulders would ache, and the day's chores had barely begun. He remembered the day the drilling rig came. The entire village gathered to watch the engineers at work. Children squealed every time the drill shook the ground. When water finally burst forth, Sifa ran forward with her friends, her laughter ringing out across the field. She dipped her hands into the stream and splashed her face, tasting clean water for the first time. "You mean we don't have to walk anymore?" she asked Daniel, her voice both hopeful and unsure. "Not anymore," he told her, and the smile that followed was something he'd never forget. In another part of the world, in a rural region of Cambodia, there was Mr. Dara, a farmer who had nearly given up on his land. Years of unreliable rain and contaminated ponds meant that his rice yields were shrinking, and with them, his ability to feed his family. When a new water filtration system was installed in his village, everything changed. He could finally irrigate his crops without fear of poisoning the soil. Within months, his fields were lush again, and his children, once sickly from constant waterborne illnesses, were healthier and stronger. He once told Daniel, "Water is life. Before, we were only surviving. Now, we are living." This milestone wasn't a sudden victory. It was decades of work, teams braving scorching deserts, dense jungles, and war zones to build wells, lay pipes, install solar pumps, and teach communities how to maintain them. It was the result of donors who gave what they could, of volunteers who left behind comfort to dig trenches in the blazing sun, and of local leaders who convinced hesitant villagers to trust in something new. Daniel's mind flashed through the struggles: the broken drilling rig in Uganda that took 3 weeks to repair, the flash flood in India that washed away freshly laid pipelines, the government red tape in Bolivia that delayed a project for nearly a year. Every step forward had been met with obstacles, but each clean glass of water made it worth it. The number, 2 million, wasn't just global. It was deeply personal. Daniel had been there for enough first drops to know the way people's eyes lit up, the way strangers hugged each other, the way someone always filled a cup and took a long, slow sip, as if to make the moment last forever. He thought of Mama Aisha in Tanzania, a grandmother who raised 7 children and 16 grandchildren. Before the well, they had lost 2 little ones to cholera. She had told him, "I will never forget the day the water came." It was like God had finally remembered us. He also thought of the young mothers in rural Peru who no longer feared giving their babies a drink, and the schoolgirls in Malawi who now had time to study instead of hauling water for hours. Each story was a piece of that giant number. 2 million meant 2 million Sifas, 2 million Daras, 2 million Mama Aishas, each one a life forever changed. Later that morning, the village gathered for a small celebration. Word had spread quickly about the milestone, and even though Daniel hadn't planned to announce it here, the locals insisted. Someone brought drums. Someone else set up a battered speaker to play music. Under the shade of the giant acacia tree, the community leader, a man named Joseph, stood to speak. His voice carried the authority of someone who had lived through decades of hardship. "When you brought the well to our village," Joseph began, "you brought more than water. You brought dignity. You brought time back to our women. You brought health to our children. And now, we are part of something bigger. We are part of 2 million stories of hope." The crowd erupted in applause. Daniel felt a lump in his throat. He had always believed in the mission, but moments like this grounded it in something even greater, human connection. By evening, as the sun sank into a horizon painted with orange and gold, Daniel sat on the steps of the small office building where he worked. Children ran past him, chasing each other with splashes from freshly filled buckets. Somewhere nearby, a mother was singing as she washed clothes with clear water. A goat bleated from behind a fence. He opened his notebook and began writing down the names of the people he remembered from every project he'd worked on. Sifa, Dara, Mama Aisha, and dozens more. The names filled page after page. Because to the world, 2 million was a statistic. But to him, it was a collection of faces, hands, and hearts. He knew the work wasn't done, not by a long shot. There were still hundreds of millions without access to clean water. But this moment, this milestone, was a reminder of what was possible when the world came together. And somewhere, in 2 million different places, people were taking a drink of water at that very moment, clear, safe, and life-giving, most of them without knowing that their joy was part of a much larger story.